Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Wes Warren. I'm here with Greg Stanley. We're from Whitehall Management, and today's topic is how to get your associates to be able to produce like you can. This has been, I would say, everybody's dream that goes down the associate route is to get an associate that can produce about the same as you can. The frustration is most people can't achieve it. There's a few issues that come up consistently. One is not having enough patients to spread around for you and the associate. Literally, we don't have enough patient flow for two doctors. Number two is getting the associate's case presentation on par with yours. Those are the two things we're going to really be diving in today about and really trying to solve.
If this is you, what I'm about to describe, then this is the program you've been looking for. You've been thinking about getting an associate, or you have an associate, but you don't have enough patient flow, usually in the form of new patients, to support them. You're not getting the case acceptance from your associates that's really like your case acceptance. So you give them a new patient, they tend to weigh in with a third of what you produce, which is basically unsustainable. We know that. You're frustrated that you can't get the associate up to your level of production. We'll get to the bottom of why that is and what you can do about it.
So if you could wave a magic wand and basically have any outcome that you're looking for, most of our doctors to have associates would be wanting any associate to be able to just step in and shine right away. Having patient flow of your dreams, meaning there's no problem in getting patients to see you or the doctor and keeping you full and busy all the time, and maximizing your team's involvement so that you don't have to do so much of the heavy lifting. So a lot of people, the dream is bringing on an associate and being able to take a vacation, being able to take some time off. But if you're doing all the management heavy lifting, it really doesn't solve that for you. And so really to create this dream practice scenario where you can take time off, it does require the team to be able to step up and really drive production and drive the practice forward like you have to do, like you're doing currently. This is what most people desire.
Wes is talking about doing the heavy lifting. What that so often comes down to is the owner doctor, you, has to maintain the overhead, try to eke out a profit while you're bringing this associate, which you don't know is going to work or not work, try to bring them up to speed. And here's why you should listen to us on this. See, most people conclude they got the wrong associate. In other words, if they had chosen a different person to be their associate, and maybe they had 3 or 4 to choose from, which you usually do, they think they just got unlucky. They find themselves selling treatment for the associate, giving work to the associate, really by cannibalizing their own schedule. In other words, to spoon feed them, they end up with nothing for themselves. And the worst, they end up redoing the work that the associate did, who probably took so long to actually deliver that it wasn't profitable to begin with. So that's why you should listen to us, is because this is what we work with day in, day out.
This is what we saw, Greg, for years. And before I even joined Whitehall, you actually preached against bringing on associates for a couple decades. So literally something had to change. To make this work, we had to figure out a way at Whitehall to solve these problems, these dynamics. That's what we have developed. We've developed what we call the AWOL system. This is where doctors can practice without being there. It's kind of the absentee ownership practice.
Right. We developed the Whitehall AWOL system that's helped thousands of doctors to retire or partially retire without sacrificing their lifestyles. Think about this. Which one of you listening to this broadcast thought life would be as difficult as it is now? And as you look at into the possibility of an associate, you think it could get even worse. Well, if you know what you're doing, if you have the right system, it's just the opposite. The term is often living the dream. You can live the dream, having it all. You have a good income. People are covering that pressure that's put on you by your patients, namely your staff and your associates, and you have the time off to keep yourself feeling like a human being as well as a dentist.
Greg, let me ask you this. When we get into this, people always ask, well, why are you teaching this? Why are you deciding to give this away or teach this to our doctors, how to create this system? And what has made you perfect this?
Well, because every associate situation we came onto was like a head-on collision with two semi trucks. It was a nightmare. The doctor, in many cases, the owner, was lucky to survive the crash. The associate went off angry. Maybe he was suing the owner after the owner sacrificed patients to him. Maybe he took patients and even staff and went down the street. So yeah, we had seen nothing but bad until we didn't, until we saw some doctors making some headway in a few areas. And to be honest, we had to kind of put this together. Some people had one part of the formula, some people had the other, and we actually had to figure a few things out. But as we went on to apply these things we had learned and figured out, we were able to get one doctor after another to be successful. And I won't say with every associate, but with the vast majority. Whereas before, we were dealing with a fraction of successful people with associates. They just weren't working out. In fact, to be honest, when something seemed like it was working out and you got to the bottom of it, he had quietly promised the associate some percentage of ownership or something. And so he kind of put his heart into it. So we got around this with our AWOL system, which we're going to talk to you about.
Yep. So what you're going to learn about today is how to combat this problem where associates come in and they default at producing 1/3 your level. So if you're doing 90,000 a month, they'll come in and do 30. We're going to talk about how you fix that, how you turn that game around, how to combat a team that's defaulted to just kind of sitting there watching the associate fail and maybe even watching you fail. Literally, we got to turn the team into a ally. In today's environment, it has become more important to solve that problem as we get these after COVID effects of our team, and we've got these new teams coming in. We've got to really engage and get them part of the process. And then lastly, how to identify the right associate. There are scenarios where you've got to know how to pick the right person.
Can I just throw in one more thing? And that is that a lot of people who've thought about associates, first of all, feel like they're not busy enough. They always thought that was the outgrowth of success, was you finally have an associate or two. And I'll agree, that's what led a lot of people to try it. Then there's the group that the owner was so tired, beat up, maybe even aging a bit, and out of desperation went out and without the information they needed, tried to do an associate with a disastrous outcome. So whatever the reason that made you consider it, first of all, know this: we've been down every path. We can mark the way for you. It is doable even for you. And you say, well, Greg, I'm not completely busy. I'm not completely this or that. I don't care if you want to work 2 days a week right now. This is possible.
So yeah, let's get into this. How to combat the associate's default production level, which is 1/3 or maybe 1/2 of your own production. Some cases you're literally having to sell the cases and then hand it to them to keep them busy. It's a complete failure, obviously.
Can I add one more?
Sure.
You as the doctor, the owner doctor, don't really know how to approach another doctor when they're underproducing. Do you scold them? Do you say what you would do? In other words, there's this range of responses, and you don't know which one will offend this person, drive them out, or make them turn on you. We're going to show you where you can go and keep this person engaging with you and your patients and your staff and moving forward.
So yeah, this 1/3 production is kind of standard. Maybe it's 1/2, and you having to hand them twice the patient volume to just produce that 1/2. It just is a non-starter. Too many dentists think they just got the wrong associate. Got to find the right associate. I'm here to tell you that's not the case. For the most part, it's the systems inside the practice that are letting you down. So what do you need to do? Okay, so first, yes, you got to select the right associate. You got to pay them the right amount. You've got to obviously scrutinize, and then you got to put them with the right team. I mean, it's when we go through this, that's what has to happen.
Let's just look at number one there.
Okay.
Selecting the right associate. You say to them, for example, because you don't know what else to say, you say, well, what do you want? And he says 35%, or he says some number. You don't know if it's right or not. You don't know if you can sustain it. We know what those numbers are. And when you get them right, you can almost, we'll show you the difference. You can almost give them whatever they want, knowing that if they don't hit certain targets that we're going to teach you, you're probably going to be replacing them with another or different associate anyway. So
Yeah.
This is going to work for you. I don't care your situation. You can make it work.
So let's kind of go through these one at a time here. So selecting the right associate. So there's a couple things that obviously there's a huge list we go off of, but for the sake of time that we have today, there's a couple key things I want to key in on here. One is they've got to be congruent with your practice style, meaning are they assertive with their case presentation, or are they non-assertive? Are they conservative, or are they aggressive? Do they like to do quadrant dentistry? Do they like to do one tooth at a time dentistry? Do they watch a lot of teeth? Do you watch a lot of teeth? It's got to be similar. It doesn't have to be exact, but it's got to be in the ballpark as far as personality type and dealing with patients. What you do not want, and absolutely avoid this at all costs, is a huge mismatch here. Rule number one is try to find somebody that's in alignment with the way you practice dentistry. Number two, we look at speed. So ask them, how much time do you like for a crown for the patient? How much time do you spend in there with them? Ask them about their biggest production days. Ask them about their biggest production month, and get a sense of what they're capable of producing and speed. Because if speed is not there, it's a deal killer right off the bat. We have a rule. First month, $1,000 a day. Second month, $2,000 a day. At the end of the third month, they need to be at $3,000 a day. So they need to ramp up quite quickly. And if their speed is not there, it will never happen. And new graduates, we give an extra month. We give a fourth month for somebody that's new to dentistry. That's the ramp up time. It's quite quick.
There has to be a cutoff too. I've watched too many doctors sit and watch a pot that never boils. The associate is doing some little thing better, something that was pointed out to them. They make little adjustments and changes, but they never really develop. We're going to show you how that happens.
And that's critical. So we're not waiting a year, 9 months to let somebody go. It's 90 days, 120 days. If they're not meeting those levels, we've decided that we've handed them the proper amount of new patients, the proper amount of patients to be seen to hit those numbers. Then it's them, and we got to let them go. We got to move on to the next doctor. So sticking with a bad hand is also very important to know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to fold your hand and move on. The next thing here on the list was how to pay them the right amount. Our rule of thumb is it's got to be 30% or less. We usually start with negotiations at 25%, and most of our offices end at 26, 27, 28%.
In the end, it's a matter of how good an opportunity you can deliver to them with great patients, great staff, great office. The more opportunity you can give them, typically the percentage tends to go down and make you more profitable.
Absolutely. So if you got a huge practice, super busy, tons of new patients, you can go at 25% and kind of demand it. You will have to pay probably a higher guarantee to get people to actually accept it, but it's worth it for you in the end, because you know they're going to be off of that guarantee and onto the percentage. And if they're not, because of the patient flow you have, because they're not, and if they don't, you got to let them go anyways, because they're not holding up their end of the bargain.
You know, Wes, this is so true, and it's so impressive, I might add. I've seen new doctors who've worked with us, they're new into our system, and they see what the other doctors with associates are producing and what they're paying associates and making far more profit than they ever thought possible. They actually want to go work for those people. So if you can create a wonderful opportunity, I mean, the world is your oyster. You're going to have plenty of people wanting to work with you. We actually had a doctor who spoke at one of our meetings. He was so successful with his associates. They were all making several $100,000 a month take home for themselves. No, producing, I mean, and taking home the normal associate percentage. So many people in the office were thinking, maybe I ought to go work for that guy. You can make it that good by just following the rules we're talking about. That's what he did.
So next is kind of scrutinizing their performance. We talked a little bit about this, but let's kind of dive into the actual numbers. We're looking for them to produce off of a new patient seen around at least $600 or more. So you should track this. This should be a number that you track the first as they arrive and you hand them new patients. You should track how much is accepted on average. You're gonna have 10 new patients, let's see, that they see the first month. On average, what was their dollar amount accepted? And it should be 6,000 is the number. And it should be 70-80% of the patients moving forward. So only two, or in this scenario I just gave you, only 2 or 3 would be goose eggs, would be zeros. The rest would obviously be stepping forward and moving forward with treatment. Those, and you have to scrutinize that, because if they can't meet that minimum standard, then you have to work with them on their case presentation and their delivery. It's part of what we do a lot of times, is we kind of massage their case presentation, help them through that, and perfect it. Little differences in how they word things and the way they word things can change that picture, not by just a little bit. You can change it from, we have doctors at $200 a new patient and get to $800 a new patient in a 60-day time period, and working with their case presentation, scrutinizing their performance and actually looking at the dollars and cents of it is critical.
This, I think a lot of people will be thinking about now, am I able to still produce and scrutinize this person? And the answer, yes. We're going to show you how you can do both.
Well, the other thing is you got to put them with the right team. So, this whole idea that you hire a new doctor and then you hire a new assistant for them, and, you put them with this whole new team, is a disaster waiting to happen. It's one of the big fails as far as associates go. You have to get them with a good trained team that is really good at the pre-assessing part of helping them with case presentation. The patient should not the doctor should not walk into a room with a patient that isn't already warm towards treatment and what the assistant or the hygienist is already seeing and talked about. And so putting them with a team that is fully trained in what we call pre-assessing and getting the patient, I guess, 80 or 90% there with case acceptance before the doctor even walks in the room. That has to be happening. If you haven't got that happening in your practice, that's where you start first before you even think about bringing on an associate. And if you've already got an associate, that's where you key in on. You want to have the doctors walking in the room and the case nearly already accepted. It just has to be officially diagnosed by the doctor. So how do you deal with this whole, Greg, this whole idea of the team is not engaged, and they just sit there and watch the associate fail, flounder. This is so common. We got an associate and they just kind of expect them to be like you. And we bring them in and we just kind of watch them die on the vine.
It's not just the staff. The owner doctor that we're making this presentation to also tends to think that the associate will walk in and produce like them. So everybody's expecting a standard of excellence, not just in clinical, but in, people skills and consumerism, et cetera. And the associate really has to have a whole system built around them so that they can produce like you do. No, they can't just walk in and do that. We have a saying that without overwhelming referrals, the associate leads to disaster, meaning people referred to the practice in great numbers. Without that, we're going to partake a brand new associate. And if we're not careful, we'll put it with new staff and then give him some marketing patients that have no idea how we do what we do. The formula for utter failure. So we're gonna go the distance in every way, in every preparation. If they fail, they have to be exceptional at failing because this system is hard to beat.
So step one, to combat this and having them kind of just watch them fail is perfectly crafted bonuses. This is something that we've tinkered with for the last 20, 30 years. And what we borrowed from practices doing associates and how they craft bonuses so that the team is hyper vigilant in getting their production up is crucial. It's number one. Number two is teaching pre-assessing. I put bonus number one because I've taught pre-assessing. You'll teach them pre-assessing. It goes in one ear and out the other. If you can't give them a reason to want to learn this material, meaning what's in it for me? If I learn this and actually use it, what do I get out of it? If you get the bonuses just right, now all of a sudden they're listening. All of a sudden when we do trainings on pre-assessing and how they can help, they're taking notes and they're testing stuff and they're coming back to me saying, hey, I tried this didn't quite work. How should I phrase this? All of a sudden you get true engagement when the bonus is right. If the bonus is not right and you start teaching them on pre-assessing and what they could do, and they just kind of sit there and don't really engage with you, it's because the bonuses aren't right.
Just a thought to us. I doubt if anybody hearing this hasn't tried a bonus in the past.
Let's bring that up.
And you're always trying to design this bonus that protects you from getting taken advantage of by staff, making a lot of extra money off patients that just fell into your bucket and just came in ready for dentistry. Or we have an outreach with our bonus that encourages staff to know they're probably going to get something. We have worked on this for years, and let me tell you, even though I would swear that we have perfected it, it still needs adjustments as we go along. This is not a simple concept. The word bonus, it's one word. You've tried it. What's next? Forget that. You got to go back and figure it out to the bottom, because until you have a team, some of you have 30 people working for you, and they all have one unanswered question. What's in this for me past the paycheck that's as little as you can pay and get away with it? So we're going to show you how you solve that problem, get everybody engaged, and everybody hits the practice goal.
Then next is treatment coordination. This is just when we go in and do these analysis and do these trainings, we're going to talk about a little later. Treatment coordination is, for most practices, is just kind of, we just hand it to Betty and she just talks to them about treatment, and how much it's going to be. And there's no system here. There's none at all. There's no training on it. No, there's nothing. It's bizarre in dentistry that there's really no good systems for treatment coordination. Again, you cannot just leave this to chance and just say, hey, yeah, we're going to just, once we get it all wrapped up, we send it to the front desk and have whoever's available just wings it.
And you stop and think about this, Wes. We have Betty, as you talked about, who can just about close anybody. we just kind of get the case together and she wraps it and gets the money. Good, that's great. And now we're gonna have an associate feed a lot more patients through here. She doesn't have time for that. So we're gonna have to have a system that everybody can be Betty and close every case that's closable, and get it done and make the associate pay. Last thing we need is an associate that can produce and a practice that can't collect.
Absolutely. Next is, tracking, statistical tracking. We gave you some of that a few minutes ago of the numbers we look at. You have to be a hawk on this. There are certain numbers they've got to hit and achieve, and a certain amount of patients they've got to do it. It cannot take 3 times the patient volume to hit that 3,000 a day I talked about. It's got to be done with a specific amount of patient flow. If
Can
it
I add-
takes an
Yeah,
abnormal amount, it's dead on arrival.
I'd like to add to that, Wes. It's because one of the things that has come out of the digital era is that we can figure to the penny what it's going to cost you to fill your practice with new patients. And I don't mean the old kind you got from direct mail, where they came in not even sure what they were doing there and had some offer that they later decided was misleading. You can get people in the office now. That's the good thing about working with internet marketing. So you want to know your numbers, because if we really are getting reasonably good people through the practice and it's breaking down somewhere else, we've got to know that, spot it, fix it right off the bat. Just one other thought. A lot of people think of associate dentists who can really show that they have prowess clinically, that they're going to do well. Well, what happens when we get into this, and this is kind of who wins and who loses in dentistry. This is who becomes a great owner and who doesn't. This complex, subtle interaction with patients or prospective patients, we're going to show you how to integrate staff into this process so that the associate doctor, number one, never really owns that patient. You own it. And number two, the patient gets all their emotional needs met of how they're treated, the consumerism, that we get the pace right. The staff are much more amenable to treatment. I mean, as far as delivering this emotional experience for patients than associate doctors are. So we realize this is a complex process. We've mastered it in many, many offices.
Yeah, the benefit here, the great thing that happens if you get this right, the payoff is just enormous for doctors. First, you get time off. You're not tied to the practice. We have doctors that don't work at all anymore. We have doctors that work 3 days a week and take 1 week off every month. You get enormous amount of freedom and flexibility in your life. You get the profitability that you've always had. In some cases, it increases as the practice grows and we add more associates. You can actually see offices actually have better profitability. It is the greatest thing, and it extends your career. So many doctors start to get tired during the day, that we're near the end of the week. Certainly by their mid 50s and into their 60s, it becomes a countdown where they just can't wait to be done. When am I over? And when they actually get this going into their practice, all of a sudden it's like, I could come in and work 4 hours a day, no problem, 3 days a week, almost indefinitely.
Let's talk about how people deal with this, how they embrace it. Some people take on enough of this system that they can drop 2 days a week or pull way back and take home the same money they were making. Some people are glad if they can even be close to that amount of money if they can get several days off a week. Then there's the people that understand the power of the system and they want it all. They take the system and make it work and make wonderful opportunities for multiple associates and staff, and they make even more money and they're not there at all. So they're, like Wes said, you can take this as far as you want to.
Well, we have people that have multiple practices, 30 practices, 10 practices, 7 practices. So yeah, you can take it as far as you want. The point is, it's a proven system over many, and when I say many, many practices, we're talking hundreds of practices that have used like a franchised system on how to bring on an associate, how to integrate them. So many of you are thinking, okay, so how to make this happen? What do I got to do? How's this? Well, we see it. You got two choices. One is you can do trial and error. You could do it yourself, tinker around, and I tried this, I tried that bonus. I hired this doctor, I hired this lady, invent the wheel. And you're trying to basically get to the point where there's a civilization. Moving from having an associate and being successful with multiple associates, it's a pretty big jump. Or you can use a proven system, something that has been done many times. You can talk to our doctors and learn from them, but also learn that it does work.
Let me just comment on that too, Wes. You can either, do the trial and error thing like you're talking about, but even if you do, if I wanted to retire foreseeably in 5 years, I'd probably say I've tried my hand at trial and error. And then I would turn to someone and get the system, assuming it was there. And number two, if you're looking down the road, 2, 3, 4 years, you better get right on it, because waiting till the last minute to try to bring the system in, it puts a lot more challenge into the process.
Absolutely, yeah. So what you want is our complete and comprehensive practice blueprint. This is where we lay it all out, and it's custom for your practice. This is not what we've learned, unfortunately, is this not quite a rubber stamp. Every practice is different. Everybody's needs are different. And so there are adjustments that we have to make. And so this is 100% custom blueprint.
And the goal here is not to try to make you be somebody you're not. There's a couple areas we might need you to improve on, but not much. This is going to have a lot to do with your team and the associate you finally choose.
So what we do is we go in and we look at all the statistics of the practice. We pull a lot of reports, a lot of numbers that we ask you for. We get your vision, really, as far as what you want to accomplish. Everybody's vision is different. So it's very important to know what the final outcome is, obviously. We pull all these reports. We ask for a lot of numbers. We interview everybody, all the team. We learn about all the systems inside the practice. And we look for opportunity, obviously, and things that need to be fixed and addressed before bringing on an associate. And we create a blueprint for your practice, exactly all the things that you're missing and all the things you need to add and all the things you could capitalize on in adding an associate. And if you're lacking new patient flow, that's obviously one of the things we absolutely address in that comprehensive blueprint, is how to jack up the new patient flow to really support an associate. Most practices have enough, even though they don't believe they do. But really, we got to get to a point where we can add around 50. Really, all it takes is about 15, 16 more new patients a month to be able to add an associate.
This is an interesting issue too, Wes, because this was probably the uphill battle in the past for just about everybody, keeping the practice with enough new patients. Here you are, 25, 35 years in practice with all these openings in your schedule, openings in hygiene. Something hasn't gone right. Well, let me tell you something. Things have changed. This isn't the problem it used to be. It's a whole new system. You can fill your practice with new patients as long as you know how to quickly condition them into a high-level buyer, and we can show you how to do that. We want to assess your system and show you where you may be falling short.
After we interview everybody, Greg, gathered everything, put together the detailed action plan and blueprint, what we do is we present it to the doctor in a Zoom session, and we lay it all out, describe everything in detail. We record it so the doctor has it. You have the scripts, you have everything you need, all the data, every statistic that you need to hit, every metric that the practice needs to attain, everything you need to watch out for, how to interview the associate, how to actually recruit the associate, what associate profile you should be looking for and which one you absolutely should avoid will all be laid out here in the final, and it takes about an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours to go through all the material. So it is quite lengthy. We answer all your questions. Nothing is left out. It's the idea that we're going to pull punches here is not true. We're going to give you everything that you need to do to be successful with an associate. This is not for you. First, if you like spending a lot of money on coaching programs, this is not a big coaching program. This is not a $30 or $40 or $50,000 a year coaching package. This is a one-time full detail analysis and give you an action plan through our blueprint. It does take Greg and I quite a bit of time. We do it ourselves. We don't pawn it off to anybody else. And so it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to kind of get through the process. So this is not a coaching program. This is not for you if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for an associate to be your best friend, this is not for you. This is about running a business. We run into problems where doctors hire their buddy from college and stuff like that, where you can't hold them accountable to the team and to the numbers. So it's not for you if that's your situation. And if you want to run everything yourself, if this is about you being a hyper micromanager and everything's got to flow through you, all the decisions, and you have to be involved in every little detail of the practice, we found that bringing on an associate really just becomes too much for you to handle, because you can't handle every little detail when you're also doing dentistry and you have another doctor. You have to really start to rely on the team more. And so if that does describe you, it's probably not a good fit to bring on an associate. The cost of the blueprint is $2,997. And we feel like it's the best money you'll ever spend bringing on an associate. One mistake in just negotiations, 1 percentage point, meaning where you could have got them at 26 and you're at 27 or 28, is going to cost you way more than the $3,000 or $2,997.
Another thing too, Wes, another thing is that when they hear this analysis, it can put them into the associate zone where they actually see themselves as a prospect for associates, where they hadn't all of their life in practice. They always thought it was for somebody else, because honestly, I'm kind of struggling to keep my office going. Once they realize this is a possibility for everybody who wants to do it, it's big.
So most of our practices that come to us, they feel like an associate might be 2 years off. If I put my head down and got my act together and followed a plan, maybe it's 2 years off. What we find is it's usually between 3 months and 9 months. Most offices can get ready that quickly. And quite frankly, we have offices that start from zero, meaning they're scratch practices. And we can get them with no owner. So we're bringing on an associate into a practice that has no patients, and we can get them to profitability in 9 months on average. So yes, you can bring on an associate certainly within 9 months or less. That's what you're paying for, is the expertise. So it is the best money you'll ever spend. You can spend 15, 20,000 just in a recruiting service. We'll teach you that, how to find an associate just by placing ads. We'll tell you where to place them. So it's absolutely worth it. And for those of you who are on our Elite Mastermind group, if you're a member of our Elite Mastermind group, this is complimentary. This is part of the program. So if you are a member and you're listening to our masterminds once a month, you should take advantage of this opportunity and book with us. For those of you that are members, there'll be an email coming out during this webinar that allows you to join and actually set an appointment with Greg and myself automatically without talking to anybody. So absolutely sign up if you're a member. If you're not a member, it's still a great value at $3,000. Absolutely do not miss this opportunity.
So you're saying they can even get this by signing up as a member and still get it. How long are you going to leave that in place, Russ?
Well, we're anticipating being full here right after this webinar. So Greg and I's schedule, we only have, and this takes an incredible amount of time to do one. And so we're gonna have probably 20 or 30 to do. We're gonna be booked up really fast. So if you're not a member and you want to do this, do it not join now and do it very quickly, because probably by the time the weekend's over, it'll be full. So don't wait. If you want to get started, click here to join or contact Lori. Here's her email and her contact information, and you can get started right away. And again, don't wait, because if you do, we won't be able to get to you for maybe 2 or 3 months. This thing will be booked out pretty far. So we've done this a few times where we've kicked off the blueprint, and yeah, it fills up real quick, and Greg and I are busy for months and months, so don't wait.
Good. We look forward to hearing from you and talking with you. Can't wait to help you get down the road for a successful associateship.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.